I came across through a status or quote which was a conversation between a lady and a person, if I'm not wrong, whoever it might be, but it was a conversation between two people, where this first person asks, how can God hate Esau? God is love, so how can he hate Esau? So this person replies, which really moved me, and he said, that is not actually what I'm concerned of, that why God hates Esau or why he hated Esau. But what I am wondering is, how can God love someone like Jacob? How can God love a person like Jacob? So in this video, I will be speaking on this topic, that why God hated Esau and loved Jacob. It's from the book Receiving God's Best by Derek Prince, which focuses on the reason that God hated Esau and loved Jacob. The reason for this particular topic. Was not Esau Jacob's brother? The answer is yes, indeed, his twin brother. Yet I have loved Jacob, but Esau I have hated. Notice that they were twin brothers, but God said he loved Jacob and hated Esau. God's attitude toward the one brother was completely opposite his attitude toward the other brother. He loved one of them and hated the other. This is commented on still further by the Apostle Paul in the book of Romans, where he says this concerning these twin brothers. Not only that, but Rebekah's children had one and the same father, our father Isaac. Yet before the twins were born, or had done anything good or bad, in order that God's purpose in election might stand, not by works, but by him who calls, she, Rebekah, was told, the older Esau will serve the younger Jacob. Just as it is written, Jacob I loved, but Esau I hated. Romans 9, verse 10 to 13. Jacob and Esau were born of the same mother and the same father. Not only were they brothers, but they were twins. However, Jacob was preferred over Esau before they were ever born, even though they were twins. This passage from Romans raises two very important questions. First, what did God see in Jacob that he approved? And second, what did God see in Esau that he disapproved? In short, why did God love Jacob but hate Esau? Let me briefly sketch their characters for you, as unfolded in scripture, starting with Esau. Esau was a good guy, a nice chap. He was strong, active, manly, a hunter. He did no one any harm. He was the favorite of his father. He was nonetheless no match for his shrewd twin brother, Jacob, who outdid him every time they had a confrontation. What about Jacob? He was crafty, determined, and unscrupulous. He never got the worst of a bargain. That is a quality that nobody really likes. He obtained the birthright from Esau for a bowl of soup. When his brother was hungry, he persuaded him to sell that priceless birthright for nothing more than a bowl of soup. If ever there was a bargain, that was it. He deceived his father to obtain the blessing, and he gained the fortune at the expense of Laban, who was both his uncle and his father-in-law. By no means would anyone consider Jacob a good guy or a nice chap. By contemporary standards, most people would prefer Esau, but God did not. Why did God prefer Jacob? I'm going to offer you one basic reason, which I believe is the key to it all. Jacob appreciated what God had to give, but Esau was indifferent. In Hebrews chapter 12, verse 15 to 17, we get a scriptural estimate of what God thinks of indifference. His views of indifference are very different from those of most Christians. Commenting on Esau's behavior, the writer of Hebrews says, "See to it that no one misses the grace of God, and that no bitter root grows up to cause trouble and defile many. See that no one is sexually immoral or is godless like Esau, who, for a single meal, sold his inheritance rights as the oldest son. Afterward, as you know, when he wanted to inherit this blessing, he was rejected. He could bring about no change of mind, though he sought the blessing with tears." Take notice of how Esau is described. He is described as godless, and he is put on the same level with the sexually immoral. He is also described as godless because for a single meal, a bowl of soup, he sold his inheritance rights. As we are told in Genesis 25:34, Esau despised his birthright. You must understand that by God's standards, indifference concerning what God has to offer is godless, and God hates it. Let us look at the opposite side, Jacob's attitude toward what God had to offer. I will just take one key incident. Jacob was on his way back to his own land when he met a man at night, who was also an angel or a messenger from God. As you will remember, he wrestled with this man all night. This is typical of Jacob because he was a wrestler. He was always fighting to be on top. So Jacob was left alone, and a man wrestled with him till daybreak. When the man saw that he could not overpower him, he touched the socket of Jacob's hip, so that his hip was wrenched as he wrestled with the man. Then the man said, "Let me go, for it is daybreak." But Jacob replied, "I will not let you go unless you bless me." The man asked him, "What is your name?" "Jacob," he answered. Then the man said, "Your name will no longer be Jacob, but Israel, because you have struggled with God and with men and have overcome." The meaning of Israel, as here interpreted, is struggling with God. How typical! Jacob was a struggler, a wrestler. However, he had one key principle. He wanted God's best. He said to this angel, "I will not let you go unless you bless me." I believe that was the key to God's favor toward Jacob. God did not condone the flaws in Jacob's character. God never does condone any character flaws. But because Jacob would not settle for less than God's best, God was gradually able to deal with him and to make out of him the kind of man he wanted him to be. The condition and the starting point was that Jacob would not settle for anything less than God's best. I want to ask you, will you make the same decision, that you will not settle for anything less than God's best?